Hey, shalom, family. All praise to the Most High YAHUAH. My name is Only Begotten Son Yeshua. You're locked in with Hebrew Elevation. Quick lesson today, going into Isaiah's prophecies about the Messiah. Let's understand exactly who the Messiah is without a New Testament bias, but just coming straight from the Old Testament, only using the book of Isaiah to understand everything that the Messiah was prophesied to be within the prophecies of the prophet Isaiah. So let's get right into it. First title is Divine Davidic Ruler, Isaiah 16 and verse 5. And in mercy shall the throne be established, and he shall sit upon it in truth in the tabernacle of David, judging and seeking judgment and hasting righteousness. Let's build upon that. Isaiah 9 and verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of YAHUAH of hosts will perform this. So what we're learning is Isaiah is prophesying the future Messiah, the king, that he's going to reign in the tabernacle of David. Okay, he's going to be a descendant of David and he's going to sit upon the throne. And in Isaiah chapter 9 and 6, it tells us that he's going to be born as a child. And what's going to be special about the Messiah is it says he's going to be called the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. And it says he's going to sit upon the throne of David. So what we can learn right there is there's going to be a descendant of David who is going to be the Mighty God. We're going to see someone that's going to sit on the throne of David, and we're going to be able to call him God. We're going to be able to call him Everlasting Father. So that's already given us some detail of the Messiah, all right? He ain't just some regular descendant of David. He's a descendant of David that you can call God, that you can call Everlasting Father. YAHUAH is king. Isaiah 33 and 22 says, for YAHUAH is our judge. YAHUAH is our lawgiver. YAHUAH is our king. He will save us. So now that's given some more understanding, building upon Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. Not only is the king who is going to sit on the throne of David going to be called God or going to be called Everlasting Father, we're learning that our king is YAHUAH. So this descendant of David is going to be called YAHUAH as well, because Isaiah tells us it's YAHUAH who's our king. Isaiah 44 and 6 says, thus saith YAHUAH, the king of Israel and his redeemer, YAHUAH of hosts, I am the first and I am the last, and beside me there is no God. So Isaiah is telling us more about the king of Israel, and he's saying that YAHUAH is the king of Israel, YAHUAH is the redeemer of Israel. So now we're learning that the Most High is our redeemer, the Davidic king is our redeemer. It's also telling us that he is the first and the last. So what we can understand now is that Isaiah is telling us the one who's going to sit on the throne of David ruling is going to have all of his glory that pertains to the Most High YAHUAH. We're going to be able to call him the Redeemer. We're going to be able to call him YAHUAH of hosts, YAHUAH Sabaoth, YAHUAH Almighty. That's what YAHUAH of hosts means. We're going to be able to call the King. We're going to be able to call the Messiah first and the last. Now, Isaiah 11 and 1 is where it really starts to paint the picture. It says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. So now it's prophesying the descendant of David. Let's see what it tells us about this descendant of David. What was the prophecy Isaiah gave? Davidic king's judgment. So Isaiah 11 and verse 4 says, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with a rod of his mouth, and with a breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked, and righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. So now we're learning that the rod, who was a descendant of Jesse, who was a descendant of King David, this Messiah that Isaiah is prophesying is the one who's going to judge the earth. It's just told us that the Messiah is the one who is going to judge the earth and smite the earth, okay? Isaiah 11 and verse 2 says, and the spirit of YAHUAH shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of YAHUAH. So it's telling us that the Messiah is going to have the Holy Spirit of the Most High. So Isaiah 11 and 4 is telling us that it's going to be the Davidic king who is going to judge the earth. that's also consistent with what we saw in Isaiah chapter 16 and verse 5, because it told us in Isaiah 16 and 5 that the throne is going to be established and he shall sit upon it in truth in the tabernacle of David. It says, judging and seeking judgment. So this king that sits on the throne, a descendant of David, is going to be the one that judges the earth and seeks judgment. Isaiah 11 and 4 is telling us that he's going to judge with righteousness. So Isaiah 11 is connected to Isaiah 16. It's building upon it. And this is also consistent with what we see in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 7, because the same Davidic Messiah, this king who is going to be called the mighty God, it tells us in verse 7, of the increase of his judgment and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice. So we're seeing clearly this descendant of David is going to be the one that will judge the earth. Okay? And Isaiah chapter 11 is telling us that it's going to be the branch, the root of David, the root of Jesse, that will judge the earth. Okay? So now let's get into it. So the last bit we touched on was Isaiah 11 and 2. It's telling us that the branch will have the spirit of the Most High rest upon him. Let's learn some more about this guy. So the king's law. So Isaiah 42 and 1 says, behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. What did he say? I have put my spirit upon him. Who else did the Most High put his spirit upon? Isaiah 11 and 2. And the spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. So what we can see from that is Isaiah 11 and Isaiah 42 and 1 are talking about the same person. So Isaiah 42 and 1, the servant who the spirit rests upon, is the same person in Isaiah 11 and 1 when it says, there shall come forth a rod out of a stem of Jesse. So this is telling us that the Davidic king of Isaiah 11 and 2, who's going to have the spirit rest upon him, is the one in Isaiah 42 and 1, who when it says, have put my spirit upon him, he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. So it's further painting this picture of the Gentiles being judged by the branch, by the one of Isaiah 11 and 1, the descendant of David, who the scripture said he's going to judge the meek of the earth, right? So let's get into Isaiah 42 and 4. Let's understand how Isaiah prophesied the Messiah would judge the Gentiles. How is he going to bring judgment to the Gentiles? Let's learn a bit more about it. Isaiah 42 and 4 says, he shall not fail nor be discouraged till he hath set judgment in the earth. Set just means to establish. So he's going to establish judgment in the earth. And the isles, that's talking about the Gentiles, shall wait for his law. So it's telling us that this descendant of David, this branch that is going to be born, as we could see in Isaiah chapter 9, is going to be born as a child, okay, and he's going to establish judgment. It says that he's going to have his own law. The Most High prophesied that the Gentiles are waiting for his law, for the law of the branch, for the law of the child that's going to be born, that is going to be called the mighty God, the everlasting Father. According to Isaiah 16 and verse 5, the one that is going to sit on the throne of David in the tabernacle of David, hasting and seeking righteousness. So right there we can see he's going to, set judgment. He's going to bring judgment in the earth and judgment to the Gentiles by bringing his law. So that's what we should expect from the Messiah. We got to think, okay, the Messiah is going to bring a law. We know in Isaiah's time, we already had the law of Moses. So, according to Isaiah, the Israelites should be looking for another law to come, a law from the Messiah. Isaiah 42 and 6 says, I, YAHUAH, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. So in Isaiah 42, same context, it's now saying that this servant who the Most High put the Spirit on, this servant who's going to bring his law to the Gentiles, he's going to be given as a covenant to the Gentiles. He's going to be a light to the Gentiles. He's going to give them guidance. So we have to understand, okay, when we're looking for this Messiah figure, he's got to be able to give guidance to the Gentiles. We're looking for someone that's going to give guidance to the Gentiles, and he's going to give a covenant to the non-Israelites. Verse 7 says, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. So that's talking about, delivering the Gentiles from captivity of darkness, talking about spiritual darkness. So he's going to give the Gentiles the light of the Most High's law, the light of the Most High's liberation from spiritual bondage. Okay. And we can see that he was going to give them a law in verse 4. So these are the, characteristics of the Messiah. What else will he do for the Gentiles? Gatherer of Gentiles, Isaiah 11 and 10 in the Septuagint. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, and he shall arise to rule over the Gentiles. In him shall the Gentiles trust, and his rest shall be glorious. So we're looking for a Messiah that is going to rule over the Gentiles, and the Gentiles are going to trust in him. He's given the Gentiles a covenant. He's given the Gentiles a law. He's going to judge the Gentiles according to verse 4 and verse 5, and according to verse 7. He's going to judge them and even smite them, okay, according to Isaiah 11 and verse 4. And these Gentiles are going to trust in this Messiah, right? Who is going to be seen as God. They're going to call this Messiah, descendant of Jesse, they're going to call him the mighty God, the everlasting Father. And we know, according to Isaiah 33 and verse 22, it says YAHUAH is our king. YAHUAH, so, is our redeemer. So this descendant of David is going to be seen as YAHUAH. He's going to be called YAHUAH, even though he's descending from David. Ain't that crazy? According to Isaiah, that's what we have to understand. So anyway, moving forward, right? So the Gentiles are going to trust in him. Isaiah 11 and 12 says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So it's telling us that this Messiah is going to be an ensign for the nations, okay? Which means that he's going to be someone that is going to gather the Gentiles together. So yeah, we need to look at a Messiah that is going to be able to pull Gentiles to worshiping YAHUAH, one that draws the Gentiles together, okay? Now, Isaiah chapter 9 and 6, just to refresh, it says, for unto us a child is born. This is establishing earth's judgment. And the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. So he's going to have a peaceful kingdom. That's why it said, the Gentiles, it says, and his rest shall be glorious. That's talking about his peace. Upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of YAHUAH of hosts will perform this. So he's going to establish, his kingdom with judgment. So he's going to be bringing the judgment. Isaiah 42 and 4 says, he shall not fail nor be discouraged till he have set judgment in the earth, and the isle shall wait for his law. So we're understanding that in Isaiah 9 and 6, the king of Isaiah 9 and 6 is the one that establishes judgment, okay? This everlasting standard of God's kingdom's judgment. And now Isaiah 42 and 4 is saying that the servant of Isaiah 42 is the one that established judgment. And Isaiah 11 and 4 says, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth, and he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. So what we've got there is 3 different chapters all talking about a person who's going to establish judgment in the earth. So what we can determine from that is the one who establishes judgment in Isaiah 9 is the same as the one that establishes the judgment in Isaiah 42, and he's the same person as Isaiah 11 and 4. So Isaiah is prophesying the same person in Isaiah 9, Isaiah 42, and Isaiah 11. So whoever you believe the Messiah is, they have to fit the prophecies in both Isaiah 11, Isaiah 42, and Isaiah chapter 9. They have to fulfill all of those standards, right? So now Isaiah chapter 11 gives us some more insight into this Messiah who's going to judge the earth. Isaiah 11 and 1 in the Septuagint says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the root of Jesse, and a blossom shall come up from his root. So what we're learning right there is the Messiah is going to be a descendant of Jesse, the one that's going to establish judgment. He's going to descend from Jesse, and he's going to be a root out of Jesse. Okay, and Isaiah 53 tells us this. Isaiah 53 and 1 says, who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of YAHUAH revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. So Isaiah is using very deliberate language. He's telling us in Isaiah 53, the subject who Isaiah 53 is prophesying about is known as a root that dries out of a dry ground. Okay, he's a root. And who is the root according to Isaiah? According to Isaiah chapter 11, the root is the descendant of Jesse. The root is the prophesied Messiah, is the prophesied king. Okay, so what we can see in Isaiah 53, that Isaiah 53 is talking about the Messiah. Isaiah 53 is talking about the root, who is the descendant of Jesse, who is going to be the one that gathers the Gentiles, who is going to be the one that establishes judgment in the earth. And we can see in Isaiah 11 and 12, he gathers the Israelites as well, right? So anyway, so now that we understand that Isaiah 11 and Isaiah chapter 53 are talking about the same person, let's see what Isaiah 53 tells us that the Messiah would do. So we thoroughly understand the prophecies that, Isaiah is telling us about the Messiah, so we know the criteria that the Messiah has to fulfill. So this is King self-sacrifice, Isaiah 53 and 11. He shall see of the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. So now we're learning that the root, the branch, the descendant of David, the Messiah, he is going to be the one that justifies many. He's going to make many people righteous, okay, by bearing their sins. So now we're learning the Messiah is going to be someone that bears the sins of the people, right? And verse 12 says, therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. So now we're learning that the Messiah was going to die, because it just said that he poured out his soul unto the death. So now we're learning about the root, the branch, the descendant of Jesse, who's going to establish the earth with judgment, who's going to have an endless reign on the throne of David, born as a child, Isaiah chapter 9. We've just learned that he's going to die and he's going to make the people righteous. And it says, and he was numbered with the transgressors. So we see that he's going to be seen amongst the sinners, okay? He's going to be counted as a sinner. It says, and he bare the sins of many and made intercession for the transgressions. So we're going to see that, okay, Isaiah is saying the Messiah is going to die for the sins of many people, all right? And he's going to intercede for their sins. So now let's get into this. This is suffering servant's reign. So Isaiah 42 and 1 says, behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Isaiah 53, 52 and 13, behold my servant. So what we can see is Isaiah 52 and Isaiah 42 are talking about the same person, because it's saying the same thing. Behold my servant in Isaiah 42 and 1, and it says behold my servant in Isaiah 52 and 13, right? So the same servant that's going to bring judgment to the Gentiles in chapter 42 and 1 is the same servant who it says, behold my servant shall deal prudently, he shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. So this servant who's going to bring judgment to the Gentiles, it's saying he's going to be lifted up and exalted. He's going to be very high. That language, lifted up and exalted, means he's going to be a king. He's going to be a ruler, right? But not just any king, because Isaiah uses the same language to describe the rulership of God. Okay, for example, look at this, Isaiah 6 and 1. And it came to pass in the year in which King Ozias died, that I saw YAHUAH sitting on a high and exalted throne, and his house was full of his glory. So what we can see there is the servant who is being prophesied in Isaiah 52 as being high and exalted is going to be ruling as YAHUAH. He's going to be lifted up in a high throne, just like the Most High. He's going to be reigning as Yah with the same level of glory as YAHUAH, which is consistent. Isaiah clearly showing us that the Messiah is going to reign as God. He's going to reign with the same glory as YAHUAH. Because did he not say the same thing in Isaiah 9 and verse 6 and 7? That he's going to be called the mighty God, that the Messiah is going to be called the everlasting Father. Did Isaiah not say that YAHUAH is our king? So if Isaiah is saying that YAHUAH is our king, and then he's prophesying the king of Israel, well, he'd have to show us that, okay, this king of Israel is going to be YAHUAH, because he's already told us YAHUAH is our king. That's the way he presents the Messiah, all right? So now Isaiah chapter 52 and 14 says, as many as were astonished at thee, his visage was so marred more than any man, and his form than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle, keyword sprinkle, many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him. That which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. So these Gentile nations who he's bringing judgment to, who are waiting for his law, as Isaiah 42 and verse 5 said, and he said he's going to be a covenant. The Most High said he's going to give him as a covenant to the Gentiles in Isaiah 42 and 6. It just said that the Messiah is going to sprinkle these nations. Okay? And what we need to bear in mind is the context of Isaiah 52 leads into Isaiah 53. So the servant in Isaiah 52 is the same as the branch or the root in Isaiah 53. The tender plant in Isaiah 53 is the servant in Isaiah 52. And we can see in Isaiah 52, look, he's going to be a king, yeah? But in Isaiah 53, he's not going to be respected. He's going to be despised. So we see that this king, who is going to be highly exalted, he's also going to be greatly humiliated, greatly humbled, because people are not going to see him as a king, as we see in Isaiah 53. Matter of fact, he's despised. He's rejected. It says he has no majesty or glory that people are going to acknowledge him, and he's going to die for the sins of the people. But then the Most High says in Isaiah 52 that he's going to highly lift him up. He will be exalted, okay? So we need to look for a Messiah who's going to be humiliated, brought low, but then he's also going to be exalted very high to the level of God sitting on the throne, all right? And what it tells us is he's going to sprinkle many nations. So we're looking for a Messiah who's going to sprinkle many nations. What does sprinkling mean? Let's see. The nations sprinkled. Isaiah 63 and verse 3 says, I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. So the Bible only ever really uses this word sprinkle when it comes to sprinkling people with blood, or it might be sprinkling with the oil or the water, all in the sense of cleansing someone or anointing them, right? So we can see in Isaiah 63, or the book of Isaiah, the only time that word comes up, apart from what we see in Isaiah 52 for sprinkle, is talking about sprinkling blood. So now let's understand, what is the significance of the Messiah sprinkling the nations? What does that mean? So Leviticus 16 and 19 says, and he shall sprinkle of the blood upon it with his fingers 7 times, and cleanse it, and hallow it from the uncleanness of the children of Israel. So we learn that in the Bible that blood is sprinkled to sanctify, to make someone holy from the uncleanness, okay, of sin. So he's gonna, blood cleanses you from sin. Sprinkling blood cleanses you from sin. So when we see in Isaiah 52 and 15, when it says that, you know, the servant is gonna sprinkle many nations, now we can learn that, oh, he's gonna be cleansing these nations from uncleanness. He's sprinkling them. He's gonna sanctify many nations and cleanse them from their sins with blood. And what we see in Isaiah 53 and verse 12, that's consistent with what the Most High promised, because he promised that this servant is going to pour out his soul to death, and he's going to bear the sins of many, okay? And the key bit is verse 12, where he says, the righteous servant, he says, my righteous servant, which is the same as when he says, behold my servant in Isaiah 52. So it's talking about the same person. But when he says, behold my servant in Isaiah 42, he says, shall justify many. So now we're learning how he's going to justify many. He's justifying them by sprinkling them with his blood. Like it says, so shall he sprinkle many nations. Okay, that includes the nation of Israel. But he justifies us all by sprinkling us with his blood. That's what it's telling us. That's what Isaiah told us about the Messiah. So, Yah willing, you know, we've come to a clear understanding of this Messiah and seen how all of these chapters are prophesying the same Messiah. And now we need to understand who fulfills these prophecies. With that, we say shalom, Yah bless.